Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezze, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezze-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the popular 5-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show.
John Kassinger is currently serving as magistrate and judicial attorney to the Honorable Joyce Kimbler in the Medina County Common Pleas Court. An Ohio State Law School graduate, Mr. Kassinger has served as clerk of the 9th District Court of Appeals, where he has worked with Judge Kimbler. He joined the Medina County Common Pleas staff shortly after Judge Kimbler
welcome
took
to Law
office
Talk.
in 2015 as a judicial attorney and now serves as one of her magistrates.
I get to see you every Thursday.
Let's join John with Magistrate John Kassinger.
In the Common Pleas Court, and today, with your approval, me and my viewers are going to find out what you do there.
That sounds good.
Okay, so you don't mind answering a few questions for me and my viewers about life as a magistrate and a judicial attorney in the Medina County Common Pleas Court?
No, I'd be happy to.
Okay, all right. Well, I was going to say you're somewhat of a newcomer, but come to think of it, you've had that job, at least the judicial attorney job, going back to, I think, January of 2015. Does that sound?
Yes, that's when I started, when Joyce Kimbler started as judge.
I see. Okay. And we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but you and Joyce have actually a long history together, right? You know
yes,
each other?
I've known her for over 30 years.
Yeah, well, that's great. Okay, well, before we get too immersed in what we're going to do with legal stuff, I happen to be having lunch today with a mutual friend of ours. I won't mention his name. But he made a point of telling me, you gotta get John to say this on the air. So I got you, John. All right. How do you feel about the Indians?
Oh, I think they're going to do wonderful and win the World Series. It's our year.
So it's my understanding that you are quite the dyed-in-the-wool Indians fan.
Yes, actually, I've been a fan ever since I can remember.
Wow. Well, okay. The only thing I know about the Indians are a couple of things, which are maybe somewhat significant. This show is dedicated to my uncle, Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the mayor of Cleveland back during the 1950s. And as a young kid, I did get to go to the Indians game, and I actually got to sit in the mayor's box, and he would actually throw out the first ball. That's about as far as I went with it, John, but but apparently the tribe is still there and doing well, right?
Right, they're going to the World Series.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll give you the usual invitation to come back anytime you want, and we'll do a postscript then to see if you were right and how they did, right?
Sounds good.
All right, better get down to business, John. You told me, we've talked about this together, but I think my viewers and, probably a lot of the local attorneys at the Medina Bar might find this interesting. Before accepting your current positions, you actually have two positions, judicial attorney and magistrate at the Medina County Common Pleas Court under Judge Joyce Kimbler. Obviously, her husband Jim was judge before. What'd you do? Tell my viewers a little bit about some of your legal experiences.
Well, John, I grew up in Northeast Ohio and graduated from law school at The Ohio State University in 1984. After that, I worked for 2 years as a law clerk at the 9th District Court of Appeals, and that's where I met Judge Kimbler. Following that, I practiced for a number of years with several large law firms in the Akron area. And following that, I went into practice with my wife and her father, who are both attorneys. Oh. Then in the 2000s, I helped start a title insurance agency and was the attorney for that agency. Then in the year 2008, I began a practice of consulting with troubled businesses and acting as a receiver through the courts.
I see.
And I was in that position and also still practicing with my wife and her father until I began with the court in 2015.
So you mentioned Northeast Ohio, John. Where in Northeast Ohio did you actually grow up?
I grew up in Cuyahoga Falls.
Oh, okay. So you're a Summit County boy.
Yes.
All right, but you went to The Ohio State University.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's great. All total, John, from the time you graduated from law school to where we at, how many years?
That's been 32 years.
Wow.
Till now.
Wow. Well, you've obviously come to the court with a wealth of experience. Now, that's great. Would have never known this if I didn't ask you, so there we go. The duties of magistrate, and I'm going to make you kind of describe more so the duties of the magistrate than the judicial attorney, because I think my viewers might be a little more interested in that, even though not to take away from what you do as a judicial attorney. But I mean, let's to get a timeline on it. You actually became judicial attorney before magistrate, right?
Right. I became a judicial attorney in the beginning of January 2015. I was named a magistrate also in April of 2015.
Okay. April of 2015. All right. Well, here we go. This is maybe to you, and maybe even to me to some degree, because we're both in the business, may seem like old hat, but to a lot of my viewers, and I've sort of picked up through the years by talking to them and commenting about different shows, a lot of people don't know what a magistrate is. They really don't. So I wonder if you could describe the duties of a magistrate in your job at the Common Pleas Court.
Okay. Magistrate is sort of an assistant judge to the judge, and what a magistrate is it's an attorney that the judge appoints to hear cases that don't involve a jury. Okay, we don't do jury trials.
All right.
A lot of what we do, we can do both civil and criminal matters. With regards to civil matters, a lot of what I do has to involves foreclosure cases or collection matters. In addition, I also do what are called civil stalking cases. And with regards to criminal cases, I have handled arraignments for cases when the judge has been unavailable at seminars and things like that.
In fact, I practiced before you here this summer on a particular arraignment. Well, yeah, a lot more to it than I think meets the eye. Your business background, you mentioned in your long years of practicing, probably pretty helpful then on the foreclosures and debt collection and whatnot.
Yes, because I not only participated in foreclosures when I was in private practice in defending homeowners, I also, when I did my consulting work, I would act as a receiver, and the majority of those receiverships were in foreclosures.
I see.
And the business was the real estate property was in foreclosure, and I would act as the receiver for it.
Okay, I don't want to birdwalk too much, but because you touched on it, and I really have a lot of other questions I'd like to ask you, but would you describe for my viewers what a receiver does, or what it means when when a court orders a business into a receivership?
Okay. In cases where there's a foreclosure going on, a lot of times the bank will ask that the business be placed in receivership, or the property that the business owns will be placed in receivership. And what that means is the receiver comes in and either runs the business or runs the property. I would collect rents and pay the bills and try and sell the property to satisfy the foreclosure. And that's what a receiver does. They take it over and they stand in place of the owner of the business or the property.
Quite a responsibility. This is you are ordered to do this. A judge orders you to do this or selects you to do this?
Correct.
Businesses that maybe even have employees that are still going to work every day, you would still step into like the CEO position, or?
Yes, several times I would take over businesses, and essentially what we would do is either try and sell the business or wind it down.
I see. Well, thanks for the birdwalk on that. I mean, I just didn't want to pass it up. But there is another term of art, which when you were talking to our reporter Kate Feeks, you brought out, and I just wanted to ask you about it. It's called order of reference. What does that mean?
Okay, an order of reference is the order that the judge signs to describe what cases and duties that the magistrates will handle. There's first a general order of reference which will cover all types of cases. In our case, the general order of reference is that we generally do foreclosures and civil stalking cases. Then there are specific orders of reference which are on a specific case that the judge will refer to the magistrate. It will either be with the agreement of the parties, or if there's no jury and trial going to be involved, then the judge can send it to the magistrate without the parties' agreement.
Okay. No, it's in very, very colloquial terms, that's your assignment sheet.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, and that would be the appropriate thing to do. She's well aware of what the cases entail. You actually have there's two of you, right? Are there two magistrates in that court?
Correct. There's a magistrate, Barbara Porzio, who's been there, I believe, 18 years and has almost 30 years of experience as a magistrate.
I see. So Judge Kimmler could order of reference to either one of you is based upon her feeling of which one of you best should have it? Is that how that works? Or?
It's based on who she feels would best handle it, and also it's based on workload at the particular time.
I see. But she always has a handle on what type of cases are coming through.
Yes, she's a very hands-on judge.
Yeah, well, those of us who practice in front of her would certainly concur with you on that. Okay, well, this is a pretty good question, and we want to kind of bring it on home. A typical day, John, a typical day at the court, including your duties, both of them, magistrate and a judicial attorney. I mean, I've said good morning to you on more than one occasion on Thursdays when I'm in the court, and basically after I do my business, I'm gone. But maybe you can tell me and tell my viewers, what's a day like?
Well, a typical day is really not typical.
Mm-hmm. That sounds about right.
Basically, when I come in, I spend a lot of time on helping with criminal matters and researching for the judge in the judicial attorney job in the beginning in the morning. Then as the day goes on, there are hearings set for each magistrate, such as foreclosures, collection matters, trials, garnishments, things like that. We will handle those as they come along, and a lot of those cases settle and then we don't have the hearing, but assuming that we're going to have the hearing, we go ahead and have the hearing. Then at any time during the day, a person can come in for a civil stalking protection order, and those are filed with the clerk and then brought up to the magistrates. When they do that, we try and have the hearing that exact day.
Yeah, we're going to go into those a little bit more detail,
okay.
But that's something you just about have to stop what else you're doing and bring them on in?
Correct. Okay. And then I also, as part of the judicial attorney side of the job, sit in on motions to suppress hearings in criminal matters to help do the research on those for the judge.
I see. John, sometimes I see you, and this next question is going to talk about call day, but before I get to it, I've actually practiced before you in the Common Pleas Court where you were wearing a robe, and then some days you don't. Is there a protocol on that, or?
Yes, anytime I'm acting as a magistrate in the courtroom, I would be wearing a robe.
I see. Okay, all right. And to wit, when that robe's on and you're playing that role, you get all that we are trained and expectations of a judge, right?
Correct.
Refer to you as Your Honor.
That's right.
Okay.
That took a while to get used to.
Oh, I suppose it probably did. But for all the years you've been around courtrooms, I mean, you've probably seen it happen enough times.
Oh, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I probably one day, sometimes people get bored because they do the same thing day in, day out. Doesn't sound like that really happens to you, though.
No, it's a wide variety of tasks and items that come up every day. Just never know what you're going to run into.
Well, this is good for me to have this discussion with you because I'm kind of a Thursday visitor. Not that my role in it is all that important, but I don't think I'm atypical. I think there's a lot of defense attorneys just turn up on Thursdays in Judge Kimbler's court because it's her call day, and we're sometimes assigned clients in. Sometimes we bring our clients as retained attorneys, and I think Judge Collier's call day is on Monday. That sound right?
Right.
Okay. So, but like today's Thursday, and I saw you first thing this morning. Today was call day. Generally, those are pretty busy days. I leave after my last case is called. But when I leave, generally there's still a few attorneys still sitting there waiting for their turn,
right.
Whatever. And Judge Kimbler seems to be pretty punctual, starting about 8:30 in the morning. And I've had days where by noon she was still going.
Correct.
Okay, but there you are, sitting right next to her. The $64,000 question, John. I'm not belittling you or making anything, being sarcastic or anything, but I really want to know, what do you do? You don't have your robe on that day, but you look awful busy. So
Okay.
What are you doing?
Well, my number one job on call days is to record the sentences. And that's when the judge gives the sentence, I take down the number, if it's, say for instance, a prison sentence, I take down the number of years and whether on each count it's consecutive or concurrent. If the person gets probation, I take down all of the conditions of probation that the judge gives. Things such like as whether they'll be subject to drug tests, whether they should obtain employment, what kind of probation they're going to get, either intensive or general probation, how many years of probation. Other sentences can be things like sentence to CBCF, the Community-Based Correctional Facility. Once I take those down, what there is there's a four-part carbon copy system, and one of those copies goes in the file, and then we give another copy to the probation department, which prepares the judgment entries that the judge reviews and signs, and then a copy goes to the prosecutor, and then the final copy goes to the defense attorney, so that, for instance, if they have probation, they can sit down and talk to their client after the hearing. Sure. And say, these are your conditions of probation, because a lot of times when people are up there being sentenced, they may not hear everything
no doubt
or
about that.
Understand everything. So it's kind of it's a tool for everyone to see what exactly the sentence was and to have a record of it.
That really makes perfect sense. There was one obvious difference when Judge James went off of the bench and Judge Joyce came on board, and you pretty much always had that role on Thursdays since you got the job?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, well, that really clears up a lot of things, because having stood with my clients on sentencing day on numerous occasions, and we don't have to go on the pre-sentence investigation, you know what they are, I don't really need to explain to my viewers other than tell you, there's a report generated prior to the judge sentencing a defendant, one of my clients, one of some attorney's clients. We get to see those pretty much on sentencing day. So as a lawyer, you're trying to kind of figure out, well, how much baggage does this guy have? Has he been to jail before? And as an advocate, the prosecutor is going to make his appeal to the judge, look, this guy probably ought to go to prison. A defense attorney has to take the other side and say, well, Your Honor, if you look at the positive points here, maybe a community control sanction, or a sanction of some kind, or sentence of some kind would be more appropriate. You are absolutely right. And I speak not, it would be bad enough if you were being sentenced, you'd be pretty nervous about the whole thing. But even as an attorney, and I don't do it anymore. I see some of the attorneys are trying to scribble it down. I don't do it anymore. I pretty much rely, obviously, what you've been doing, because you're going to miss something. First of all, call days are backed up with a lot of cases, and the judge is calling one right after another. So I guess when you sit up there for 3 hours, you're pretty busy, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're all kind of depending on you to get it right, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right. Well, I'll pay you quite a compliment. I'm just finishing a book called Sully. I saw the movie about the guy who landed the plane in the Hudson, and he did everything right. Well, John, you're doing everything right.
Oh, thank you.
So, all right, shifting gears. Well, that's very interesting. I mean, it really is, because take it from me, it's a pretty stressful day for everybody. And today it was pretty interesting. You caught one today. Judge mentioned 1 count, and I saw you kind of signaled her, and then she corrected. There were 10 counts.
Correct.
Yeah, well, that's quite a difference between 1 count and 10 counts, and well, we don't have to discuss what happened to the guy, but if there was a difference.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on. Okay. Considering your lifelong legal experiences, John, you got quite a lengthy list of them. What do you think is the most helpful in preparing you for, well, your job as a magistrate?
I believe when I was in practice, because I did all sorts of civil and criminal cases in the court system. I practiced mostly in Summit County, but I also practiced in Portage and Medina counties at times. And I would go down to criminal call day in Summit County, and I would sit there for 3 or 4 hours and try and get cases and try the cases that I had and plea bargain the cases that I had. So I think that all of that experience in the court helped. Also, there were a couple things I hadn't mentioned on experience. I did act as a visiting judge at the Cuyahoga Falls Municipal Court a couple of times.
Okay.
And also I acted as an arbitrator, which is sort of a judge.
Well, those are great experiences that you brought with you to this job. Okay, John, I want to get this one in. I'm kind of keeping an eye on the time, but we're still doing fine. But this is one I think is, you and I have talked about it a bit, and I really think our viewers are going to be very interested in this. What is an order to, the order that I think you would sign, well, obviously with the judge's approval, is an order to prohibit civil stalking. But I think there's some confusion here. First of all, what is civil stalking?
Civil stalking is when one person commits 2 or more incidents against another person that causes them to believe that they will be physically harmed, or incidents that causes mental distress. You have the classic incidents of stalking where perhaps someone dated a person and they broke up, and then the person continues to follow them around or something like that. You have cases where neighbors are fighting and one does things to the other, like following them or threatening them or things like that. So there's a procedure set up where the person can come in and file a petition for civil stalking order, which gets filed with the clerk of courts. Once they come in that day, we have what's called an ex parte hearing. What that means is we take the testimony of the person that feels they're being stalked or harassed, you may say. We have the hearing, and if they can produce evidence of at least 2 incidents, which constitutes a pattern, there has to be a pattern of behavior, then we will give them what's called the ex parte order. On that same day, we will set a hearing in approximately 10 days for a full hearing.
That's where both sides are going to come.
Right.
Okay.
So the other person will be served with that order. The order is a temporary order which says you shall stay away from the other person. Then we have the full hearing to see that if a full order should be issued. In that case, generally what we do is we keep the people away from each other. If it's neighbors, it could be they have to stay 50 or 100 feet away from them. If it's just people that don't live near each other, it might be 500 feet. And those orders can last up to 5 years.
Yeah, that was my question, how long? Okay, they can last up to 5 years. For the benefit of my viewers, lawyers sometimes throw in a little Latin. Ex parte means only one side was there presenting their case, right?
Correct. That's why we
That's-
have another hearing.
Right. So, but everybody will get their fair day, but the person who's scared, concerned, will go to the clerk's office, fill out the proper paperwork, it'll get to you, and that's one of those things in your course of your day, you'll stop what you're doing to hear it?
Yes, we'll stop and do what we can to hear it as soon as we can.
Okay. And then 10 days down the road, the other side, then you'll have them both in the courtroom at the same time.
Correct.
Now, what are your options then? I mean, if you're convinced that the ex parte person wasn't telling you the truth, do you lift it?
Yes, at the full hearing, we would go ahead and say we're not going to issue a final order in favor of that person.
I see. And well, what happens if the other side doesn't turn up for the full hearing?
If the other person doesn't turn up for the full hearing, we still have the hearing. The person again has to present evidence of at least two incidents.
Okay, John, now, in my limited practice in domestic relations court, these things come up all the time. You know, husband and wife are divorcing, there's issues here. Is there a difference between what Judge Kovac does with those or her magistrates and what you do?
Yes, the orders in domestic relations court involve persons that have had a relationship in the past.
I see.
For instance, if they've been married, or if they have had a child together, or if they live together, then the domestic relations court can issue an order in that instance. In our case, in our court, the people that come in are 99% of the time not related in any manner.
I see.
And that is why they bring it in our court rather than domestic relations.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you for being my guest today on Law Talk. That last segment here on civil protection orders, unfortunately in this day and age where we hear of bullying and whatnot, are probably something that have become somewhat prevalent. And of course your delineation between the relationship and domestic relations and what you can do there. I want our viewers to know that if you find yourself in that situation, you go to the clerk or clerk's office. That's where you start.
That's where you start, in the civil division.
Civil divisions on the first floor of our courthouse in Medina County. And then from there, the process will start. Well, John, thank you for being my guest on Law Talk, and you have a standing invitation to come back anytime you want, and I guess I'll say, go Tribe.
Thank you.
Comments made by John's guest on Law Talk are solely those of his guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project. To view this show and others, go to www.czclep.org. In the Wadsworth area, a complete listing of dates and times of this broadcast, tune in to WCTV Channel 15 or log on to wadsworthcity.com and follow the links to WCTV. At CZClep, we're devoted to the education of today's legal issues. Fueled by the public's keen interest in our legal system and current events, CZClep is dedicated to the educational venues aimed at enhancing the understanding by all citizens, regardless of age, education, occupation, or wealth. A function of the Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project.